Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to route out a nice simple porthole, which will be a submerged porthole. And the idea is we get our general shape, we'll route out the centerpiece as deep as we dare go on this recycled pine. This actually left over from the last video I did. If it had been slightly bigger, it would have been a bigger porthole. And the idea is to route out the outer circle, leaving our little studs, rivets, bolts, whatever's holding the porthole in place. So that will be lowered. This inner ring will be slightly raised, and then we'll take out, like I say, as much as a centerpiece, allowing us to pop in an image. Now they can vary. There's some nice fish there, so we will set that down inside the porthole. Or there's a nice turtle there. I think I'm going to go for the turtle. I did do a vote with family members, and everybody's gone for the turtle. So we will end up with that turtle in the middle, as I say. It'll be lowered down half the depth of this wood, and then we'll put some nice clear resin over the top, just to give it a glass effect. And hopefully that little project will be somewhere towards the finishing line. Now for me, for doing the actual circle, this obviously you can get a compass. I actually drawn around a plate, and then a smaller plate. I also made myself a little template jig, or whatever you want to call it. It's basically a cheap plastic ruler. I measured the centre of my wood, made a little hole in the ruler itself, and that will pop in there nicely. Now that's my rotation point. If I get a nice pencil, you can mark off with it being a ruler, should I say, and just pop your pencil in there and go around like so. That'll give you a nice circle, and whatever depth you wanted, thickness of that next circle, should I say, basically make another hole, pop your pencil in, and draw your circle like that. And you can use that all the time. Obviously, like I say, a piece of string fastened to a nail in the middle, pull your string out, make a little loop, you can put your pencil in just the same. That's a great little thing for doing circles with. Okay, so we've got all our circles done. Like I say, take your time, get a pencil. We want to shade in all the bare areas we're going to remove. And remember, in between every one of those, because we have got those little rivets there. I'll show you in a minute once I've removed all the bits off the wood. As always for me, I like to use these CNC bits. They do come in different degrees. They're 20s in there. Not too sure what they are. They're 10s and 15s. And that basically is just the angle of the cut on the end. You might just get that in there. There we go. So just that end cut there is the angle of the degree. I personally can't tell the difference between 20s and 30s. We're going to use a 15 today, I believe. And so they fit the router. They do come with a 3.175 shaft on. You require what they call an adapter reducer collet, 6.35mm, and you literally slot that in. These will fit a Dremel if you're using a Dremel router attachment, but as we're using a 1/4" router, you slot that in there. That's now 1/4 inch, and we can pop that straight in the router. Depth wise, literally about 3mm. I do have a piece of wood somewhere, I can just find it. There we go. We're not very organised today, and I made myself a piece of wood like this. There's a lot of different gauges on, depth should I say. And I know that number 2 one is 3mm, because that's basically the same thickness as one of the CNC bits. If I just show you quickly, that just fits there snugly. So we know that's 3mm. That one's actually 4. We might end up doing 4 on this yet, but we'll see. So we've got that in our adapter. We'll set it to that depth once it's inside the router, obviously. We'll route out all this back section, going around each one of those rivets, and we'll see what it looks like. And then we'll do the same on the inside, but we'll lower that a lot deeper. Now normally I use these end milling bits for my small projects. They're fantastic, they work out really well, but that's quite a lot for that to remove. So today we'll jump on some of the big boys, and these straight flush bits. I will put a description to all these little bits. They're only eBay specials, nothing fantastic, but they definitely do the job that you need. And we'll probably find a chunkier one like that. They have a 1/4" shaft on, so they go straight in the router without the adapter. and we'll use that to remove most of that middle section. And then we're looking to seeing how it finishes in regards to painting it or staining it. I think a nice gold spray on here would finish it off to give it a nice chrome look, nice brass look. But we'll see how the progresses, should I say, as we go along. Okay, let's pop our little CNC bit into the router and we'll start going around these rivets. If I can just show you that quickly. It's hard to see on there, but there's a lot of rivets going around there. Now if you wanted to, you could route those out, put a slit across, make them large screw heads. Remember, if you haven't got a router, you could also just cut out the outer circle on a scroll saw and then cut out the inner circle and basically stick that to it with the template inside. Same again with these screws. I'm going to route them out just because I make work for myself. You could also get a bit of doweling rod or something and cut off your little sections and actually glue them on afterwards. It's entirely what you want to do. If it's a hard way of doing things, that's the way I'm going to do it, unfortunately. Okay, that's enough talking. Let's start routing all this out. And hopefully when we come back after a tidy up, we'll be ready popping some resin in with the image underneath. Right, you can see from that we've gone all the way around the inner circle. Remember that inner section, that's all going to be removed at a nice good depth. We want to leave this one here and then we want to remove all these sections here. You can see from that one we've already took off a section already. Now I will be putting on the straight flush bits eventually, but they're just a little bit too big to fit into that little gap there. So we're going to pop on an end milling bit for that. Now the way I like to do things, remember, I don't think I mentioned yet, we are going to cut this out on a scroll saw to give us our full circle. Now you could route this out here and come right up to your line there. Remember, we would have gone around that with a CNC bit and route out all that section, leaving your nice little rivets in place. I've tried that on a previous project, but I just find, we've not been the best scrawler in the world, I just find it awkward to go around that line there when this has already been removed, because you'll have that to the lower level and this obviously would be the eye level. So what I do is tend to remove as much as I can and just leaving that little lip all the way around, just enough so you can see that pencil line, and then we'll cut it all out on a scroll saw, go back to the router and we can basically just nip off that little lip we left and we can just run straight off the edge of there, no problem. If you're really good, you can cut it all out now if you wanted to. But I just like to leave as much wood on as you can, because when we come in with the router like so, it just gives you more of a surface for your router to run on. If this was all removed and cut out, as you're coming in there, you're not going to have enough to balance on, and you might just start pivoting a little bit. But it's entirely, you find the way that works best for you. So I just find it best to route this out first while we've got all this wood, and then we'll cut it out and then just go around and just nick off that little edge. You'll see what I mean as we go along with the video. Same again when we remove this middle section. We're better off starting off in the middle. I've got quite a small base on my router, like so. So if I was to start there and start going around and getting towards the centre, as soon as I come off this lip here, this will be our eyes point there and the eyes point there. But obviously we've removed this, I'm going to have nothing to balance on. So that would be elevating, should I say, freehand. So if I start from the middle and then just work out and we'll finally get to that outer circle, hopefully we'll have enough wood to for the router to run on. You can buy bigger bases. Some people make nice big bases out here with a couple of handles on. That'd be ideal because it would stretch the full length of the piece itself. But like I say, I've only got a small base on mine. So you just got to think ahead a little bit of how you're going to route things out. So what we do for now, I'll just pop on one of these end milling bits. These are fantastic. I can't praise these enough. And they are really, really cheap to purchase. And they route out the side walls as well as the bottom. So it'll give you a nice smooth finish. And we just need one that's going to fit in just between that little gap there. So we'll go around, clear up these the best we can. And then we'll pop on a straight flush bit. 1/4 inch shaft. Remember, that'll fit straight into your router. This one we still need the adapter collet. So it's just a simple case of removing your CNC bit. You will get a lot of projects out of that. Seriously, I've been using that one since forever. Now remember, this is just recycled pine. This was a wardrobe. Was it a wardrobe? No, this was a table back in the day. And it's left over from my previous project. Anyway, end milling bit, slot it into that little barrier. You will find some that come without the barriers on. There's one there. It's exactly the same piece. It just hasn't got the barrier on, obviously. So we slot that in. We'll set it to that depth there. And basically just clear out all these middle sections. And then we'll pop on the other one. Let's do that next. Right, so we've gone all the way round with our little end milling bit. Now I would be quite happy to do the full project with that. That's coming off really easy. I've noticed with this recycled pine, it's really a nice little wood to work with. So you can see the effect we're going for. There's our first couple of rivets done. Obviously we've got to remove all this section now. And like I just said, that end milling bit would do it no problem. But because we've mentioned the straight flush bits, these come in a pack of 10, I believe, going up from smaller ones to smaller ones, and they go up to a nice little chunky one somewhere, something like that. These are quite reasonable priced, and they do work really good. They're a little bit more aggressive, so I certainly wouldn't use them on delicate things, and obviously coming in here, that will catch hold of that, and if that was any smaller, that would pop that off. So just be a little bit careful. They're ideal for bigger projects. So for today, I'm just going to pop on the smallest one. Like I said, because we have mentioned them, we're going to pop it on, and I'll just route up more or less not far off that line. Just enough so I can still see the line, because my preference is to route out as much as I can. We'll cut this out with a scroll saw, and then we'll come back with a router and just nip off that little section we've left. If you're really good, you could route right up to that line, and then cut it out with a scroll saw. But remember, you're working on 2 different heights, and I just struggle a little bit with this one being 3 to 4 millimeters lower than the outer piece. So I like to follow the pencil line instead of following 2 different depths, if that makes sense. So for me, we'll route out as near as we can, and then we'll pop back on again afterwards and just clear it once we've removed it with the saw. You'll see what I mean as we go along. Okay, we'll pop this one in the router, basically remove the rest of this circle. Right, that's all our outer ring nicely routed out. And you can see from that, we've still got that little lip on there. And that's just enough of a pencil line for me to be able to go around and cut it all out with a scroll saw. And then we'll simply go back to our router and just nibble that bit away. There's lots of different options. On previous projects, I've actually drilled a little pilot hole on either side and cut it out before we started routing, just leaving a little tab there and maybe a little tab there just to keep it in place. Remember, we're just after the extra wood to run our router bit on. You could also cut out the full circle if you wanted to, and literally just pop it back in there and then do your routing that way. I just found the level just moved a little bit too much for me on my soft cushioning underneath. So it's find an option that suits you. You can actually just cut this off. There's two separate halves, removing that side and that side obviously. And then when you come do your routing, just slot up your piece of wood and use that as a resting point. If there's ways around doing things, best just find one that suits you. So we're going to cut this out now. Remember, we're going to come back and give it a general tidy up, and we've got all this middle section to remove. So for now, we're just going to release it from its surround, because all we need to do is remove those little rough edges afterwards. Now the scroll saw blade I like to use is a spiral blade. They're not to everybody's taste, and if you can see them, we're going to get it the teeth spiral the full length of the blade. These are brilliant because they will cut in any direction, so you can go up, down, left, right, and then you'll cut a full circle basically just by doing that with your wood. Ideal for bigger projects. On your cheaper, more basic swords, you get a pin blade. They also have a pin at both ends. That just clips onto your sword. Remember, you always want your teeth facing towards you, and your blade, you want to feel smooth on the way down, and you want to feel rough on the way up. That way you know you've got your blade in the right way. They're on your more cheaper swords. They're fantastic for outer cuts, but if you're doing really detailed work, they do a pinless blade. There's also no pins on there at all, and that is really small. Same again, you want your teeth facing towards you, smooth on the way down, rough on the way up, and these go into a fancy clamp that clip the top and bottom. Same again with your spiral. That wants to be smooth on the way down and rough on the way up, but obviously it doesn't matter which way you put that in because it's spiraled the full length. That's just a personal choice for me. Okay, I'll pop this on the saw and literally just cut this out quickly, and then we're back to the router to remove that little lip and all that centerpiece. Fairly deep, remember. It's a good inch thick, so we want to go down maybe 3/4 just to give it a bit of depth for when we pop our little turtle picture in the middle, and then we'll cover it all with resin once we've decided if we're going to stain this or spray it bronze or goldy colour. But let's cut it out first. Right, we've cleared out the centre of the porthole. For that I just used a straight flush bit, nice chunky one. They do come in bigger sizes. It's got a nice double blade on this one. It's got a 1/4 inch shaft, so you don't need the adapter collet. And I just went through it in one go. 1/2 inch down, that's gone. If you've only got smaller bits, you're better off doing one pass, lowering your router a bit, do another, and just nibble at it. Don't put too much strain on your bits or on your router itself. But I got away with doing that with one because I know this pine routes out really easy. You'll notice there, because of my small base on my router, my only point of contact is this circle now. So we're going to go that way and we're going to fall that way. So I started in the middle, just worked out and worked out. And once I got towards the edges, you'll notice I saved a little corner of the piece we cut out. You can pop that along your side there, and that just gives you something more of a base for the router to run on. And you can simply just rotate that round and go that to get the final edges. Ideally, if you've got a larger base, which you could make yourself, a lot of people make their own, that would fit across there no problem. Or you can also get what they call a router sledge. That's another story, where you set it up in a sledge like so and just go back and forwards. I don't have on it any of those, obviously, so we do what we do, but it's done the job. Happy days. We don't need to do anything with the bottom of that. Remember, we're going to put our image in there of the turtle and cover it all with resin. But I just want a general tidy up on the sides. There's a slight little nick there we lost. That is because of those straight flush bits. As we came in, they're a little bit aggressive. If you'd done that with the end milling bit, that wouldn't be a problem. But I quite like that. We're going to paint this a brassy looking gold colour, if that makes sense, to make it look like metal instead of wood. I did Google wooden portholes and just don't think it would be advisable for somebody that's submerged in water. Anyways, this will do for us today. So, general tidy up with a flexi cable attached to the end of a rotary tool of any description. Just give it a nice tidy up, do those side bits, and then I like to use these engraving bits, just cheap eBay specials. You get a pack of 30 for next to nothing. I like to get one with a nice flat bottom on it, and that's just enough to fit in those gaps. And we just go around, tidy these up and round off these rivets. Remember, if you wanted to, you could get an engraving bit, and if you just put a slit in there and route out a little slit in there, or engrave a slit in there, should I say, and make it look like screws. I'm going to make mine look like rivets. Okay, general tidy up, then we'll get our paint put on. Once that's dry, we'll pop in our little image with the resin. Let's just do a little general tidy up first. Right, that's enough sanding down and general tidying up for me. We've got our basic porthole shape. I have noticed on the back there's actually a hole here. That's going to be ideal for hanging up. Like I said, it was recycled wood, so you will find holes and bits in, so be conscious of that when you come to do your projects. You don't want to route out too deep and go straight to that hole, because it does have a good depth on it, and that's enough to hang the piece up with. So I'll just make sure that's at the top when we put our template inside. Now, people that watched my previous videos, they would know that I would normally bring out the boiled linseed oil now. However, because we are wanting a metal look effect, the only paint I've found in my shed is a metallic gold. So I'm just going to brush this paint straight on, do the full piece, all the sides, straight over our little rivets here. And then we'll come back when it's nicely dried and we're ready for putting our template inside. So it's a metallic gold, no primers or anything. I'm just going to go straight onto the wood and brush that on like so. Then once it's dry, you might want another coat. I have used this before on a previous project on a large sword that I have on my shed, and it does take a while to dry. But you get the general idea from that. So I'll do the full piece like this, and then we'll come back when hopefully it's nice and dry, and we'll go on to the resin side of things. Right, it's a day or so later. We've got our paint on. That's all nicely dry. What we need, we've definitely got a metal look effect for our submerged porthole. Now remember, we've got a hanger at the back somewhere, this here, so we just want to make sure that's at the top when we come to put our turtle template inside. Now remember, the idea is to simply just, we'll place that in there, and the idea is that you're looking through a porthole and seeing the turtle swimming towards you. Now this is printed on inkjet paper. If you were to pour your resin straight on that, the paper will just soak it all in and the image will become slightly transparent. It will still be a usable image, but to be safe, we like to protect this with something. Now some people use Mod Podge. You could brush some of that on both sides. Once it's nicely dry, it does dry clear. It goes on like a PVA glue, white in colour, but it does dry clear. And that way you're going to protect this paper from your resin when it goes in. You could also try spraying it with some varnish. I've heard people spray it with air spray. For myself personally, if you haven't got a laminator, that's another option. Pop that through the laminator just to seal it all, and then we'll get some scissors and just cut it around the edge. But for me, I like to use this clear book covering, clear sealed book covering. It's really cheap here in the UK. And that just peels off nicely, and we put a piece of that on the front of our image and on the back, and literally just cut it out. I find the hardest thing with this stuff is actually getting the corner. So I've peeled a little bit off, and we've put a bit of paper on there. That's left a nice little flap. And we're going to just peel that off, seal this image, and then we're down to the resin side of things. We'll do that next before we pop the resin. You can see from that, we've got that in there nicely. Just because we had that little lip all the way around, it made a nice, snug, tight fit. Now if you wanted to, you could put a bit of glue on the back of there, just to hold that in place. I never bothered personally. I'm just going to rely on the resin, sealing it all. Now if you don't want to get into the resin side of things, you could actually make that as a finished item. That way you just pop that in there and it's in nice and tight. You get a little pin, you could remove it and maybe replace it at a later date with another picture. That's entirely up to you. But for me, I'm just going to seal it in there permanently with resin, like we said, and hopefully we'll give it a nice glass finish to it. Now the resin I'm going to use today, just Vista 1. It's a mix by volume, so you want the same amount of A, which is your resin, and you have the same amount of B, which is your hardener. Some resins you can mix by weight, this is a mix by volume. So we get a couple of plastic containers, just basically put the same amount in each one. Right, there's our two plastic containers. So we've marked one A, we'll go up there, we'll say 1 inch of that. This is a 1:1 ratio, remember, so check your instructions, check what volume, what amount you need. B, exactly the same, so 1 inch in that one. So we pour those two in, and basically just mix the two together. And then we pour it over the top of our printed image, and we'll have a little lighter to go over the top, just to release the bubbles. Okay, there's our resin nicely mixed. Good thing about these little craft resins, or whatever, you can always mix small amounts, and you have plenty of time to mix some more and top up. A lot better than just mixing a vast amount and mixing too much. So it's just a simple case of just going to throw that all in there. We might get lucky with this first one. If it's not enough, like I just said, we can always mix some more. You can leave that 3 or 4 hours if you wanted to and top it up afterwards. But I'm hoping that we might just have enough here to get the general idea for what we need. So we've got that in there roughly like so. Don't be overly concerned about any bubbles or anything. Like I said, we're going to skim over this with a little lighter, and that will clear it all up nicely. Now we can just simply rotate this round like so. I do apologise for the lighting on this, it's going to be quite reflecting. But hopefully when it's all finished, we'll go outside and you'll be able to see a better image. More natural lighting, should I say. Okay, so that's more or less run around there nicely. That's all nicely covered. Last bit there. And that's it. We might get away with that one, to be honest. That's just enough to give it a nice protection. And now it's just a simple case of finding a lighter. I use these cheap ones. I also have one of these larger ones. I've not used that bit. I'm a bit nervous, that one. So for now, we'll just skim over this one and we'll just go over the top like that. It's hard to see on the camera, but you'll actually can see all those bubbles just popping away and disappearing. You can do this 2 or 3 times over the next 10 minutes or so. Or, like I say, there's your big boy. So don't mess about with that one. And that's it. So we'll leave that. I'll see how it settles down. And we'll come back in 24 hours plus. And we'll see, hopefully, how that's settled. It gives that nice glass effect. Okay, we'll come back in 24 hours. And hopefully, this little project will be done. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Now I've turned the light off on the mobile phone just so the light doesn't reflect too much on this, but hopefully you can see from that nice shine. We've got some lovely resin set in there, nice and solid, and that little project is finished. Now the only issue I did find with this, I've got a little black line run across there. Now personally myself, I think I've burnt that with the mini flamethrower come torch or whatever it was. So the little lighter might have been a bit more subtle with that. But it's not really affected the overall project itself. Just looks like the water's been a bit disturbed as the turtle's swimming towards the porthole. And that's it. This little project is finished. Now I could top this up with a little bit more resin if I had any concerns about that. But for me, this little project is finished. Now remember, we've got our little hole on the back for hanging purposes, or you can make a nice tray out of that, a couple of glasses on, a nice bottle of wine. And that's it, we're done. Just nice fun projects. So remember, we use the CNC bits to go around all our lines with. We use the end milling bits to do the smaller areas, and then we use some of these straight flush bits to route out the centerpiece and the areas here. They are a little bit more aggressive, so be careful with those, but they're really cheap to purchase and they definitely do the job for you. So, and that's it. So it's 11 inches across, all routed out on recycled pine. We use a metallic gold to give it a metal look. Then we inlaid our little template there of the turtle, and then we use a resin to pour over the top, one set. Hopefully we've got a nice porthole effect. And that's it, we are done. This is an indoor piece, remember. I will pop it outside just so we can have a better look under natural lighting. But for now, this little project is finished. Thank you very much for watching.